My name is Noah Callahan. I'm 31 years old, and on January 9th, 2025, I died inside a crumbling cave tucked deep in the Zagros Mountains of Iran. I was a Navy SEAL for 12 years, part of Team 6. I'd seen things in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and a few other places I'm not allowed to name. Some missions blur together, others haunt me. Back home in Virginia Beach, I had a wife named Sarah and twin daughters, Lila and Reese, both 8 years old and wild about science fairs and bedtime stories. They believed I fixed computers for the Navy, letting them think that was the one truth I could safely wrap in a lie. Some things you leave unspoken, not because you're ashamed, because you want to protect the people you love. That morning, our operation was supposed to be routine, gather intel, no engagement. We were tracking a high-value target close to the Iranian border, standard run. But in that part of the world, routine is just a word soldiers use to fool themselves. At precisely 0347 hours, we hit a buried explosive device the size of a riding lawnmower. I remember looking at my watch a split second before my world went white. The pain hit like a train. Shrapnel ripped through my chest and stomach, my mouth filled with the taste of copper and salt. I heard my team shouting, but their voices sounded distant, like I was underwater. I tried to shout back, but nothing came out. My body felt like it was caving in, but my mind, my soul, it began to rise. There was this strange tugging, sensation, not painful, just powerful, like being pulled upward by a force older and stronger than gravity. Suddenly, I wasn't in the cave anymore. I hovered above it, weightless. I watched my own body, bloody, motionless, while Jackson pounded my chest and Williams barked into the radio, begging for medevac. And I felt nothing, no pain, no fear, just this profound, overwhelming peace. Then the cave faded, the mountains disappeared. Even the chaos of the helicopter blades faded into silence. I found myself standing in a field made entirely of light. Not light from a sun or a bulb. It glowed from the air itself. It was warm and comforting, like standing in the arms of someone you'd loved since the dawn of time. That's when I saw him. He walked toward me with a quiet authority, like the wind had bowed to let him pass. I knew who he was instantly. Not because of what he looked like, but because of what I felt. My whole life I'd heard about Jesus, from chapel visits, from Sarah dragging me to church on Christmas Eve, but I never really knew him. Now, standing in that impossible field of light, I knew him better than I knew myself. His eyes held oceans of love, deeper than any grief I'd ever buried. His face was strong yet gentle. His robe glowed, but it wasn't the robe that mattered. It was the presence, like every molecule in existence whispered his name. Noah, he said, and somehow my name felt new, like it had been spoken for the first time with purpose. I tried to speak, but my throat caught. All I could do was whisper, "Lord, what's happening to me?" Jesus smiled, and I felt something warm spread through me like sunrise breaking over winter snow. "Your body is failing," he said, "but your spirit, your true self, has never been more alive." I looked around at the glowing field, the endless sky without a sun, the stillness that vibrated like music without sound. "Is this heaven?" I asked. Jesus nodded, but gently. "This is where I meet my children when their time on earth ends. But Noah, your time isn't over yet." My heart sank. "Sir, I took shrapnel through vital organs. My team, my wife, they're probably being told I'm not coming back." Jesus stepped closer. I could feel waves of compassion rolling off him like tides. "I need to show you something first. Something you must take back with you." Before I could ask what he meant, the field of light shifted. We were suddenly standing on a mountain so high, the clouds hung far below us like a quilt of mist. But instead of trees and valleys, I saw the earth, the whole world, laid out like a living map beneath our feet. "What do you see?" he asked. I squinted. At first, it looked like Earth from space, but then I noticed strange shadows sweeping across continents, moving, growing like storm clouds, but darker, thicker. "I see darkness moving across the land," I said. "Look closer," he told me. I focused on one of the regions, and my vision zoomed in, like I was using a satellite scope unlike anything in existence. What I saw made my blood run cold. Armies. Armies crossing borders. Columns of tanks, jet fighters, ICBMs rising from silos in Russia, China, North Korea, nuclear warheads armed, cities burning, missiles climbing into the stratosphere. American cities, New York, Los Angeles, D.C., erased in blinding light. Even my own home in Virginia Beach, gone. Just ash. Nothing but silence. My voice came out as a whisper. "Lord, what am I looking at?" Jesus' voice was filled with sorrow. "The world is rushing toward a war unlike anything it has ever seen. Nuclear fire will fall from the sky. Millions will perish in a single day." I trembled. "When?" "Very soon," he said. "The signs are already showing." I stood frozen beside Jesus on that mountain, watching the planet groan beneath the weight of what was coming. The tensions between nations, the rise in threats, the buildup of weapons, these aren't coincidences, Jesus said. They are signposts. The world is nearing a boiling point, and soon it will erupt. I watched as the vision unfolded like a prophecy written in fire. Chinese warships surged toward Taiwan, while American carriers scrambled to intercept. Iranian forces blockaded the Strait of Hormuz. Russia pushed deeper into Eastern Europe, each movement like a match striking dry kindling. But just when it felt like I couldn't bear to see another explosion, another flash of death, Jesus raised his hand. "Now look here," he said, pointing to several glowing points scattered across the world. At first, they looked like flickers, tiny flames in a sea of darkness. But then I realized they weren't random. They were people. Individuals on their knees in bedrooms, churches, mountaintops, prison cells. Some cried, some whispered, some shouted into the sky. "They're praying," I said softly. "Yes," Jesus answered, and his voice was filled with a gentle pride. "These are my faithful ones. They are the ones standing between earth and total devastation. Their prayers are a wall, a shield, a cry that heaven hears." I watched as those flickers of light grew stronger. They connected, threaded together like strands of gold, stretching across nations, oceans, continents. Where those threads intersected, the darkness shrank back. Not all of it, but enough. Enough to hold judgment at bay. Jesus looked at me with fire in his eyes. "Noah, the enemy has been planning this war for decades, but he still fears the one thing he cannot defeat: faith." I nodded, overwhelmed. "What do you want me to do, Lord?" His gaze pierced me, loving but commanding. "You must go back, warn them. Tell them that time is short. Tell them their prayers matter more than they will ever know." I could barely speak. "But Lord, I'm just one man. Who's going to listen to a soldier with scars and nightmares?" Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder, and a surge of power ran through me like lightning. "I will give you the words. I will open the doors. But you must speak, even when they mock you. Even when they question your sanity. Even when your own brothers in arms doubt your mind." The vision began to fade around us. But Jesus wasn't finished. "There's something more you must understand. This war is not just about nations and weapons. It is a spiritual war, a battle that has raged since the beginning of time." Then I saw it. Behind the world leaders, the generals, the politicians, I saw shadows. Not human shadows, but beings. Dark forces with eyes like smoldering coal. They whispered lies into the ears of kings, stirred up hatred between cultures, twisted truth into pride, and pride into vengeance. "These are the ones pushing the world toward destruction," Jesus said. "Demons of pride, of fear, of lust for power. They hide in the corners of decision-making rooms and whisper into the minds of those in authority. I felt my knees buckle. What can stop them? Your prayers, Jesus said with certainty. The prayers of my people bind these spirits. They silence the war drums and open the hearts of rulers to wisdom. I felt the full weight of what I'd seen, of what he was calling me to do. Lord, I don't know if I'm strong enough. Jesus smiled again. That same soft, steady smile that had held me together since the moment I saw him. My strength is made perfect in weakness, he said. The tears I'd buried for years, the ones I never cried when my brothers died in the field, when I held Sarah after her miscarriage, when I looked at my daughters sleeping and wondered if I'd ever come home again, they finally came. Not because I was broken, but because for the first time, I felt whole. You have prepared your entire life for physical battles, Noah. Now I am preparing you for spiritual warfare. The stakes are higher than any mission you've ever undertaken. I stood there shaking, not from fear, but from awe. Then Jesus said, "There's one more thing you must see." He waved his hand, and the world below us faded again. Now I stood before a sea of people, millions, every nation, every skin color, every language. They stood with arms lifted, tears streaming, voices raised in worship and prayer. These are the ones who will hear your message and respond, Jesus said. Some already know how to pray, others have never spoken to me before. But when they hear your testimony, my spirit will stir their hearts. I saw people in tiny churches, city cathedrals, even hidden underground gatherings in nations where faith was forbidden. I saw soldiers on bases in every corner of the globe, bowing their heads beside their rifles, families weeping together in their living rooms, all of them praying. And as they did, the spiritual darkness I'd seen earlier began to lift. The black storm clouds receded as the light of prayer rose like a tidal wave. Can we stop it? I asked. Can we really prevent this war? Jesus looked at me with eternal confidence. With me, all things are possible, but it will take more prayer than the church has ever given. It will take repentance and fasting, like the days of Jonah and Nineveh, and it will take men like you to carry the message. The glow around us began to shift again, and that peaceful field of light returned. But something was different this time. There was weight in the air, like time itself had paused, holding its breath for what would come next. I turned to Jesus, my heart torn. Lord, I don't want to leave this place, I said, voice trembling. I've spent years in battle. I've seen death. I've been its messenger. I've felt the weight of what it does to a man's soul. Here, it's all gone. There's no fear here, no pain. His eyes held mine, full of compassion. I know, Noah. I know the burdens you've carried, the nightmares, the silent guilt, the blood you never asked to spill. But your story's not done. I felt something stir in my chest, like a distant thunder rolling through a canyon. Sarah needs you. Lila and Reese need their father, he said. And the world, it needs your voice. Just hearing their names, Lila and Reese, broke something in me. I saw their faces, their laughter, their silly songs they'd make up at bedtime. I saw Sarah holding our family together while I was away in the shadows of war. I realized then how much they'd risked by loving a man like me. Jesus stepped closer. There is still time, Noah, but not much. The choices of nations are being shaped as we speak. The window is narrow, but open. My breath caught. Will I see you again? He smiled, a smile that cradled my soul. Sooner than you think. But for now, go. Remember everything I've shown you, and do not be afraid. I will be with you always. The light began to dim, but his face stayed steady. And then, everything went black. I woke up gasping. The first thing I felt was a bolt of pain in my chest, like someone had slammed a sledgehammer against my ribs. The second thing I heard was rotor blades, the unmistakable chop of a medevac. Then came the voice. "Petty Officer Callahan, he's back. He's actually back!" I blinked hard. A Navy corpsman hovered over me, eyes wide in disbelief. "Noah," he said, shouting over the noise. "You flatlined for 14 minutes." I tried to speak, but my throat was dry and raw. Every inch of me ached, but something inside burned brighter than anything I'd felt before. The next few days were a blur: intensive care, endless tests, wide-eyed doctors shaking their heads in disbelief. "No brain damage," one said. "Heart restarted like nothing happened." The Navy's top. Specialists couldn't explain it, but I could. I had died. I had stood before the King of Kings. And I had come back with a mission. The first real change I noticed was in my prayers. Before, prayer had felt like talking to a locked door. But now, when I prayed, I could feel it. That golden thread, warm, alive, pulsing with heaven's heartbeat, coursing through my chest. I started seeing people differently too. I could walk past someone in the hallway and feel their fear, their ache for peace, their buried questions about eternity. It was like Jesus had handed me spiritual eyes. Then came the dreams. Every night, I dreamed of the visions he showed me. The missiles, the war, the map of golden threads, the fire, and the light. I dreamed of churches on fire with prayer. I dreamed of men and women awakening in the middle of the night, dropping to their knees without knowing why. And so, I started speaking. Quietly at first, one-on-one. My chaplain. Then Sarah. Then our church small group. I told them everything, what I saw, what he said, what we must do. Some wept, some stared wide-eyed, some just shook their heads, a few laughed. But I kept going. Churches invited me to speak. Some were curious, others skeptical. A couple told me to leave. But others wept at the altar. Entire congregations dropped to their knees in repentance and intercession. Not just polite Sunday prayers. No, deep, desperate cries that made heaven lean in and listen. I saw something happening in them. The same thing Jesus showed me, people waking up. But I also saw the signs begin to surface. Cyber attacks, threats between global leaders, the Pacific becoming a powder keg, hackers breaching nuclear systems. It was all falling into place, just as I had seen. And I knew. Time was shorter than most people realized. Some nights, I'd wake up drenched in sweat. Not from fear, but from urgency. Like my soul was trying to scream through my lungs. I'd sit on the edge of the bed, watching Sarah breathe beside, me thinking about our girls, and wondering if the world they'd grow up in would be one built on peace or turned to ash. I wasn't the same man who left for Iran, not in body, not in spirit. I kept speaking, wherever I could, to churches, to veterans, even to chaplains inside the Pentagon. Some thought I'd lost my mind. A few nodded politely, then went back to talking about budgets and briefings. But others listened, and when they did, I saw that golden warmth behind their eyes, the same one that lived in me. Jesus was waking his people up, just like he said. Still, there were those who laughed. They'd pat me on the back, call me the preacher soldier, and tell me I must have hallucinated. But I never responded with anger, because I remembered what Jesus said, even when they mock you, speak. And so, I did. Not with polished words, not with eloquence, but with fire. Because I knew what I'd seen was real. The war wasn't just coming, it was already beginning. In hearts, in ideologies, in boardrooms and war rooms and back channels of governments, and it could only be stopped by something more powerful than weapons: prayer. Jesus didn't ask me to change the world alone. He asked me to speak, and let him change hearts. I've spoken in tiny churches of 15 people and megachurches with 15,000. I've prayed with young soldiers and old pastors, And everywhere I go, I repeat the same words. One prayer can stop a missile. A praying church can save a city. A repenting nation can prevent the EI fire. It's not a metaphor. It's a spiritual law. You see, people think that their prayers are whispers into the void. But I've seen the truth. When a single person prays with faith, it shoots like a golden arrow straight into heaven. It cracks the sky. It binds the darkness. It reaches into the offices of world leaders and softens hardened hearts. And when a group prays together, it's like a spiritual shockwave. There's a reason Jesus showed me those glowing threads, the networks of intercessors. They're not fantasy. They're real. And they're forming right now in living rooms and pulpits and broken places all over the world. But it's not enough yet. We're not too late, but we're close. You might be thinking, Noah, what if it doesn't work? What if the war still comes? My answer, what if it does because we didn't pray? What if we stand before God one day and realize we could have stopped it? What if we had the power to stop millions of deaths and chose comfort instead? I think about my daughters, Lila and Reese. They're 10 now. They still think I fixed computers for the Navy. They don't know I died. They don't know I saw a world on fire. But they do know I kneel beside their beds every night and pray until my voice breaks. They don't know why, but one day they will. And maybe when they're older, and their generation is the one standing on the edge of history, they'll remember that their father didn't just fight with weapons, but with faith. They'll remember that. Daddy said, prayer shapes the world. And maybe they'll believe it enough to pray like their lives depend on it. Because they will. You who are reading this, you who made it to the end of my story, this isn't just my experience. This is your call. The fire doesn't have to fall. The missiles don't have to launch. The cities don't have to burn. But it's going to take more than hope. It's going to take action. So I ask you, if you've never prayed for peace before, start tonight. If you've been praying now and then, make it a rhythm. If you pray daily, gather others to do it with you. Fast, repent, worship, cry out. Let the golden threads stretch through your life, your family, your city. Because the world won't be saved by politicians or diplomats. It will be saved by people on their knees. I died in a cave in Iran and met Jesus Christ. I stood before him trembling. I saw what's coming, and I came back with his message. That message is simple. Pray, like the world depends on it. Because it does. Time is running out. But with God, there is always hope. And hope begins on your knees. If this testimony stirred something in your heart, don't scroll away. Subscribe for more stories that awaken the spirit. Comment below, God is in control. And if this message touched you, share it with someone you love and want to bless. We can still turn the tide together.